Bold and the Beautiful put Liam Spencer through the ringer last week with a near-fatal gunshot wound and a death sentence from a tumor on the CBS soap. Now Liam recuperates from a procedure that supposedly removed that tumor. But instead, some viewers wonder if Grace Buckingham's surgery might have been nothing more than making a superficial slice on his head. Some fans go as far as to suggest he never had a tumor in the first place, with Grace Buckingham making herself a quick $1 million with a scam. But others think he will still have that tumor when Finn gets a new MRI and Grace disappears with her new fortune. Then some B&B fans think Liam may have had a tumor removed, and he will emerge a changed man, personality-wise. Whatever is happening, viewers saw evidence that Grace Buckingham was lying to Bill Spencer when she picked up the scalpel to operate instead of her colleague. So fans suspect something is off with Dr. Buckingham and this so-called surgery fix. Looking back at the scenes from last week on Bold and the Beautiful, Grace Buckingham was overprotective of her patient, Liam Spencer. Even Finn picked up on this. On Friday's B&B episode, Finn mentioned how Grace found the tumor, which hints at how this diagnosis started. When the surgery was about to happen, viewers suggested that Grace looked like she was fighting off guilt. The same type of behavior was seen from Grace once Liam's surgery was complete during Friday's Bold and Beautiful episode. As Bill sang her praises for Liam Spencer's new lease on life, Grace looked uncomfortable. Mostly the fans describe her as looking guilty. Bold and the Beautiful threw us a twist after Liam's operation. He supposedly underwent brain surgery, yet just hours later after this risky procedure, Grace told Bill Spencer to take his son home, and he would be fine. This stunned Bill, but he went along with Grace Buckingham's directions, as she is the expert. But when Finn and Bridget Forrester rushed to Liam after finding out Bill took him home, they were full of concerns. Grace was nowhere to be found, and Liam was kept heavily sedated by a nurse that Grace assigned to Liam at home. Some Bold and the Beautiful fans think Finn will be the one to figure this out once he takes a look under Liam's bandage. Without Grace Buckingham around, Finn may take it upon himself to check Liam's incision from his supposed brain surgery next week on Bold and the Beautiful. Some fans think he will find nothing more than a superficial cut on the head. Since Finn suggested it was Grace who found this tumor, fans surmise that she could have used another patient's MRI images. She could have told the other doctors that the images belonged to Liam. Up until now, they wouldn't have a reason not to trust Grace. So if this is the case, they trusted what she was saying and went along with her diagnosis. They didn't question her findings, especially as she substituted another tumor patient's tests for Liam's tests. All kinds of theories for this Bold and Beautiful storyline spin across the social media platforms about what Grace Buckingham did to Liam Spencer last week. One theory has Grace performing this surgery without telling anyone the possible outcomes. Some fans think Liam will wake up with a new personality, and possibly someone who might not remember those close to him. The video below covers that possibility of a new personality. Still, Grace scammed Bill and Liam even if the brain tumor was removed. She presented a doctor who supposedly developed this experimental surgery. But as we watched, it was Grace who proceeded to use the scalpel on Liam. The man she said was the doctor was in the room with her, but he followed her lead. So some fans think she scammed a desperate father, Bill Spencer, out of $1 million. Her anxiety about getting his million into her account was seen on screen a few times. Then she got that mysterious phone call. It appeared she was scared when promising the person on the other end the money was on the way. Grace set it up for a nurse to monitor Liam around the clock on Bold and the Beautiful last week. He is kept sedated, but maybe it was for just enough time for her to get out of town. Because if this was a $1 million scam, this lady is in trouble. The hospital lights buzzed softly overhead, humming in sterile rhythm with the machines that surrounded Liam Spencer's hospital bed. The day had been long, emotionally draining, and filled with more questions than answers. Liam had just come out of what was supposedly a life-saving brain surgery, and yet, something about the whole thing didn't sit right with everyone. Especially not with John Finnegan. At first, it seemed like a miracle. Grace Buckingham, the skilled and seasoned doctor with a mysterious past, had diagnosed Liam with a deadly brain tumor. Almost too swiftly, after Liam had collapsed at Spencer Publications. Within 48 hours, Grace had taken the lead on his case and arranged for an emergency surgery that she claimed was the only way to save his life. Bill Spencer was frantic. The idea of losing his son after so many recent reconnections shattered him. He didn't hesitate when Grace quoted a price, a steep one, for an experimental but effective procedure. $1 million. No insurance, no questions, just cash. Bill wrote the check before the ink had even dried on Liam's scan reports. But what no one could have predicted was the eerie cloud that followed the surgery. From the moment Grace stepped into that operating room, doubts began to surface. It was strange, Finn had thought. The surgical suite at Cedars-Sinai had been fully equipped, and a renowned neurosurgeon had been scheduled to lead the procedure. But the moment the operation began, it was Grace who took control. The other doctor, a man introduced as Dr. Teller, quietly stepped aside, glancing nervously at Grace before complying. Finn had watched through the observation window, baffled and uneasy. Grace's movements were calculated, precise, but there was something performative about them, almost as if she were putting on a show rather than performing a critical surgery. And then, just 2 hours later, Grace emerged from the OR smiling. The surgery was a success, she announced, wiping her hands and adjusting her white coat. We got the tumor. Liam's going to be just fine. That was it. No scans, no follow-ups, no recovery protocol. She simply told Bill Spencer to take Liam home and let him rest. I've arranged for one of my private nurses to monitor him, she had said. He'll be kept sedated for pain and rest. Give him a few days. Bill, emotionally raw and relieved, didn't argue. He thanked her profusely, shook her hand, and called for his driver. But Finn's instinct screamed that something was very wrong. Even before they left the hospital, Grace had shown signs of something deeper brewing beneath the surface. She flinched when Bridget Forrester asked for post-op images. She brushed off Finn's question about the tumor's size and location. And worst of all, she had a phone call in the hallway that she thought no one overheard, except the nurse on duty later told Finn what she'd seen. Grace had been visibly shaken, her voice hushed but frantic. It's done. I just need time. The funds will be transferred soon. She'd hung up quickly when she noticed someone approaching. And then, without warning, Grace disappeared. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her office was empty. The nurse assigned to Liam didn't know where she'd gone and insisted she was only following orders to keep him calm and heavily medicated. By Tuesday of the following week, Finn had had enough. He made an unannounced visit to the Spencer estate, determined to see Liam. What he found left him deeply disturbed. Liam was pale, sweating, and barely conscious. His speech was slurred, and the bandage on his head looked suspiciously small for a supposed invasive brain surgery. The nurse, a stranger Finn had never seen around any local hospital, was visibly nervous, refusing to let Finn examine the incision site. I'm his brother-in-law, Finn growled. Step aside. When he finally peeled back the layers of gauze, Finn's heart sank. The incision was little more than a superficial slice, a carefully stitched laceration that barely broke the dermis. It wasn't a cranial surgery scar. It was staged. Finn took a deep breath and turned to the nurse. Tell me exactly what Grace Buckingham told you to do. The nurse trembled. She said to keep him calm. Keep him sedated. And don't let anyone touch the bandage, she said. She said it was for his safety. But Finn had seen enough. That afternoon, Finn called an emergency meeting with Bill Spencer and Bridget Forrester. They gathered in Liam's room, where Bill stood frozen in place after hearing Finn's report. What do you mean there was no surgery? Bill demanded, voice rising. She made a superficial incision to make it look real, Finn explained. I believe the scans were faked, too. I've already contacted radiology. There's no original MRI of Liam on file. The ones we were shown might belong to someone else entirely. His mind raced back to the moment he handed Grace that cashier's check. She had smiled, thanked him, and assured him Liam's life was now in safe hands. She conned me, Bill finally said, a dark look coming over his face. She conned all of us. The next several days were chaotic. Ridge Forrester pulled strings to help track Grace's whereabouts. Brooke Logan leveraged her media connections to find out if Grace had fled the state. What they uncovered stunned everyone. Grace had liquidated her assets, closed her accounts, and booked a flight to Belize. But by the time they reached the airport footage, she was already gone. Meanwhile, Liam slowly began to regain clarity. His sedation wore off, and with Finn's care, he started responding more clearly. But his personality had shifted. He was withdrawn, confused, and forgetful, unsure of where he was or even who some of his visitors were. Could it be psychological trauma? Bridget asked Finn. Or did she actually do something more we haven't found yet? Finn didn't answer right away. He had a theory, and it terrified him. Finn arranged for a new MRI, this time with no interference. And when the results came back, everyone in the room stared in stunned silence. There it was, a small tumor, deeply embedded, still present in Liam's brain. She didn't remove anything, Finn whispered, hands trembling as he turned the scan toward Bridget. She didn't even try. Bridget covered her mouth in shock. So this wasn't just a scam for money. She left him with a life-threatening condition. Bill stood up from the table, rage emanating from every pore. "I'm going to find her," he said through gritted teeth. "I don't care where she is. I'm going to bring her back, and she's going to fix this, or she's going to answer for what she's done." News spread fast. Steffy Forrester was devastated, as were Hope and Wyatt. Everyone rallied around Liam, who now faced a real battle for his life. This time, with no scams, no shortcuts, and no manipulative doctors playing God with his fate. The bold and the beautiful world was shaken. Grace Buckingham had been trusted, respected, even admired in some circles. But now she was a fugitive. A doctor who exploited a family's desperation and betrayed their trust in the most dangerous way imaginable. And as Liam lay in bed, eyes fluttering open, the first clear words he muttered were to Finn. What happened to me?" Finn placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "We're going to fix it, Liam. For real this time."